Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're venturing into a really fascinating and sometimes kind of surprising part of ourselves, the way our forgotten past keeps influencing us.
It really is quite something. We tend to think forgetting is like, wiping a slate clean.
Yeah, exactly, deleting the file.
But what if it's not like that? What if the things we forget don't actually vanish, but just slip into the background and still manage to, well, nudge our thoughts, our feelings, maybe even how we act without us always realizing it?
That's the big question we're digging into today, isn't it? What really happens to what we forget? Does it just disappear, poof? Or does it, linger somehow?
It makes me think, that image of tossing a stone into a lake?
Oh yeah, the ripples spreading out.
Right. They're clear at first, then they fade, the surface looks calm again, like nothing happened.
But the water itself isn't quite the same, is it? That energy went somewhere.
Exactly. The initial impact dispersed. And this ties into how we understand awareness, really. This whole idea of figure and ground from Gestalt psychology.
Right, what you're focused on the figure.
And everything else is the ground. But that ground, including what's forgotten, it's still shaping the figure, still part of the whole picture.
It reminds me of that story about Sarah in the cafe. She just gets hit by this wave of panic, heart pounding, the whole deal.
And no obvious reason why, right? The setting was totally normal.
Totally. It wasn't until later, digging around, that this really old memory surfaced. Being left alone in a restaurant as a kid, feeling abandoned. The conscious memory was buried, but her body.
Her body remembered. That's a powerful example. It really shows how experiences get stored not just in our conscious recall, but physically.
Physically, you mean like in our nerves or muscles?
Yes, absolutely. Especially emotionally charged stuff. It leaves imprints on the nervous system, muscle tension, even posture. It's like an implicit memory of a body-level knowing.
So in those Gestalt terms, it's like an unresolved tension
Right.
sitting there in the background.
Precisely. An incomplete pattern in the field of your awareness, sort of.
Yeah.
Seeking completion, seeking resolution.
And it's not just big traumas, is it? It could be smaller things too.
Oh, definitely. Think of it like a symphony playing very softly in the background of your mind.
Okay.
Most of the time you tune it out, but then maybe a certain chord or just a few notes of a melody you'd forgotten suddenly resonate with something happening now, and boom, an unexpected feeling pops up.
Huh. Like a little echo from the past suddenly getting louder.
Exactly. Those forgotten melodies or unresolved bits, they're like hidden rocks underwater in that lake we talked about.
You're sailing along fine, think it's all clear.
And then whack, you hit something. A smell, a song, maybe even just the way someone says something. And you get this surprisingly strong reaction. You might not even know why.
It's often just the feeling that comes back, right? Not the specific memory itself.
That's often the case, yes. The emotional tone seems more persistent sometimes than the factual details, so you feel uneasy or suddenly happy or irritated. And the why is elusive because the explicit memory is in the background.
People call them echoes of unfinished business.
Yeah.
That phrase really sticks.
It does, and it connects to that psychological idea, the Zeigarnik effect.
Ah, yes, the need for closure. Like when you leave a task half done and it just nags at you.
Exactly that. Your mind craves completion. So unresolved situations, especially if they involve strong feelings or needs that weren't met, they create this kind of psychological tension, an open loop.
So forgetting isn't really forgetting, it's more like pushing it backstage.
That's a great way to put it. It's moved out of the spotlight, but it's still there influencing the scene.
And the neuroscience backs this up too, doesn't it? Memories aren't just static files.
Not at all. They're dynamic networks, connections between neurons. Even if you can't consciously pull up a memory, the pathways might still be there. They can be reactivated.
Which leads to that difference between explicit memory, the facts, the events you can state,
Where the things you know,
and implicit memory, the stuff that works under the radar.
Exactly. Influencing your behavior, your emotions, those gut feelings, that sudden sense of, I don't like this place, or I feel drawn to this person, without knowing why, that could easily be implicit memory at work.
Have you noticed that in yourself? Those instant reactions?
Oh, absolutely. And it maps perfectly back to that figure ground idea. Explicit memories are the figure, what you're attending to. Implicit memories are in the ground, quietly shaping how you perceive the figure, how you react.
So yeah, forgetting isn't erasure. It's more like relegation. Pushing things into the background, but they're still active participants.
They still have influence. Which makes you think twice about that idea of just, hitting a button to erase a bad memory.
Right. It sounds tempting at first. Get rid of the pain.
But then what happens? All our experiences, good and bad, they weave together to make us who we are. Start pulling threads, even painful ones.
You could unravel the whole tapestry, lose something essential about yourself.
Precisely, and maybe trying to erase is the wrong approach anyway, if these things create tension because they're unresolved.
Then trying to suppress them might just make it worse, like holding that beach ball underwater.
Exactly. It can amplify the tension, lock you into cycles of avoiding certain feelings or situations, or even unconsciously recreating similar scenarios. Maybe the real work isn't erasing, but transforming, integrating these forgotten bits.
Finding a place for them in the story rather than trying to rip out the page.
Yes. Bringing the shadows into the light, not to banish them, but to understand their role, because the more you fight them, the more they seem to stick around.
Like your own shadow following you.
That's a perfect image. And this really pushes us to look at the structure of memory itself, how it's organized within our awareness.
It's not just storage, it's a dynamic process.
Figure, ground, tension, resolution, fragmentation, wholeness.
Yeah.
It's all playing out.
Talk more about this field of awareness. It sounds like more than just immediate consciousness.
It is. Think of it as this multidimensional space containing everything you could possibly experience. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, potentials, all coexisting.
And attention is like the spotlight.
Exactly. It highlights something, makes it the figure. Everything else becomes the ground. But that ground isn't inert. It's active, influential.
Like the rest of the orchestra, even the quiet instruments.
Precisely. They're crucial for the overall harmony, or dissonance. Forgotten memories are part of that orchestra in the background. They contribute to the overall feel, the structure of your inner world. Memory isn't just what you store, but how it's organized.
And wholeness is key here. The idea that the whole is more than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. Experiences aren't stored as isolated fragments. They're stored as patterns, as gestalts, interconnected webs that include context, emotions, sensations.
So that feeling of unease in a room, it might not be the room itself.
It might be that the pattern of the room, the light, the shape, something resonates with a whole forgotten pattern from your past, an intact gestalt, and that triggers a response, often bypassing conscious thought.
Which is why just trying to snip out one bad part of a memory doesn't work. It disrupts the whole pattern.
Exactly. It creates tension, a pull towards restoring the whole, towards completion.
Which brings us back to completion and the Zeigarnik effect again, that drive to finish things.
Yes. Unfinished situations, especially those tied to strong emotions or unmet needs, leave these open loops in your awareness field. They persist, creating tension.
Like someone who was always ignored as a kid keeps finding partners who ignore them.
That could be an example, yes. An unconscious attempt to replay and somehow complete that original unresolved gestalt. The tricky part is recognizing these loops because they operate from the ground, influencing your choices and reactions without you realizing the pattern.
So how do you close them? Do you need to remember everything?
Not necessarily full detailed recall. Sometimes insight is enough, recognizing the underlying pattern. Then you can find creative adjustments, new ways to respond, maybe revisiting the feeling with new understanding, or creating symbolic new experiences that offer that sense of completion.
And then there's isomorphism. That sounds like Clemsa.
It's a fascinating idea. It basically means your inner world and how you perceive the outer world tend to mirror each other. The structure inside reflects how you see things outside.
So if your inner world is chaotic from childhood,
You might perceive chaos or threat in the external world more readily, even when it's not objectively there. You're projecting the structure of your inner field onto reality. It's like wearing glasses tinted by your past experiences.
does that explain why certain situations suddenly trigger old feelings? Because the outer situation matches an inner pattern.
Exactly. The external event resonates with and activates a corresponding internal gestalt. A stray comment, a particular smell. It flips a switch, brings that whole pattern, feelings and all, closer to the surface.
But if these things are so influential, why don't we notice them more? It feels like we should be constantly bumping into these forgotten memories.
Well, think about attention. It's not passive. It's actively selecting, filtering, amplifying based on what seems important right now.
Like those experiments where people watching a basketball game completely miss someone in a gorilla suit walking through the middle.
Precisely. Inattentional blindness. You're focused on the figure counting passes and the ground the gorilla gets filtered out. Forgotten memories can be like that gorilla. Always there in the field, but only noticed when your attention shifts or when something specifically draws attention to it.
And attention isn't random, is it? It gets pulled towards things.
Right. Especially towards areas of tension or incompleteness in the field. That's why highly charged, suppressed memories can sometimes burst through so powerfully. There's a strong pull towards them.
So it's not a fixed wall between figure and ground. It's more like a dance.
A very fluid dance. Things move back and forth constantly. Forgotten memories are prime examples residing in the ground, but always with the potential to step into the figure.
So relating to our past isn't about fixing it in place.
Not at all. It's about seeing memories as living processes within you, evolving as you evolve. A memory that dominated your life might fade as you integrate its meaning, while a seemingly minor one could suddenly become important because of a new context.
So we should aim for flexibility, allowing things to move.
Cultivating a flexible, open awareness seems key, allowing that movement between figure and ground, and recognizing that forgetting, in this sense, isn't a failure. It's actually functional. It lets you focus on the present.
But the potential is always there to reconnect, to bring things back into view.
Exactly, and we can learn to navigate that terrain more intentionally through mindfulness, reflection, creative expression, ways to consciously engage with the whole field.
This leads to that really radical idea. Maybe there's no true forgetting, just transformation.
It's a provocative thought, isn't it? That memories don't get deleted, they just change form. They circulate within your system, influencing you in new ways, like the water cycle changes form but doesn't disappear.
And latent memory, the idea that every experience leaves some trace.
Like a seed buried in the soil. Even without conscious recall, the potential is there. Maybe déjà vu, or those gut feelings, those intuitions. Maybe there are glimmers of these latent patterns surfacing.
That feeling of, I've been here before, even when you know you haven't.
Could be. It's just the whole perspective. Forgetting isn't passive loss. It's active restructuring. The past is carried within you, constantly being reshaped.
So the question becomes less, can I forget this? And more.
How can I transform this? How can I integrate this forgotten part into who I am becoming?
And it explains that weird irony, trying hard not to think about something, just makes you think about it more.
Oh.
The rebound effect.
Oh, definitely. From this Gestalt view, trying to suppress creates resistance. You're pushing against something in your own field.
Which just adds energy to it, like wrestling with a beach ball underwater again.
Exactly. You invest energy in the suppression, which ironically keeps the memory active and salient. The harder you try not to remember, the more central it becomes.
So fighting it is counterproductive. What's the alternative?
Approach it differently. Not necessarily diving in headfirst, but maybe approaching with curiosity. Gently. Acknowledging its presence without judgment. Okay, this feeling memory is here. What might it be about?
Not dwelling, but allowing. Creating space.
Creating space for potential transformation. Allowing the forgotten memory or the feeling it carries to evolve into something else, maybe insight, maybe compassion, maybe just acceptance.
This really messes with the typical linear idea of time, doesn't it? Past, present, future, all neatly lined up.
Completely. This perspective sees experience as holistic. Everything is interconnected now within your field.
So a childhood memory isn't back then. It's still active, still present in the field, influencing today.
In a very real sense, yes. It's not a dead artifact. It's a living part of the current structure. Time feels less like a line and more like maybe a spiral.
A spiral where past, present, and future are constantly intersecting and informing each other.
Yes, and forgotten memories are threads in that spiral, woven into the fabric of who you are right now and who you're becoming.
Okay, so if we accept this, how do we actually work with it day to day? How do we integrate this stuff without getting swamped? You mentioned creative adjustment.
Right. It's about responding to what's arising in your field in fresh, resourceful ways. And it often starts with simply noticing.
Mindfulness again. Paying attention to the subtle stuff.
Exactly. Noticing those little pings, recurring dreams, odd reactions, patterns in relationships. Those might be signals from unresolved gestalts from the ground.
And
Then explore them gently. Reflection, talking it through, maybe journaling, art, movement. Ways to bring that vague sense into clearer focus, to understand the underlying pattern.
the goal isn't perfect resolution of everything, though.
Probably not realistic, no. It's more about finding a greater sense of harmony and integration within the complexity, accepting that some things might stay in shadow, others come forward. It's an ongoing process, a dance.
It really brings up that huge philosophical question then. Who are you if your identity includes all this forgotten, half-hidden stuff?
It suggests identity is much more fluid, more emergent than we usually think. You're not just the sum of your clear memories.
There's a freedom in that, maybe. Not being totally defined by the remembered past.
There can be. And also an acceptance of the mystery, the shadows within our own awareness. Maybe that inherent unknowability isn't a flaw, but part of the beauty of being human. We're always in process, always creating ourselves.
And the forgotten memories are part of that creative material, offering hints, nudges.
Exactly. Possibilities emerging from the ground.
It does bring us right back to that unfinished symphony metaphor, doesn't it? The forgotten bits are like those unresolved notes, adding tension or depth.
They are. And maybe the invitation is just to listen, to sit with the music as it is, the harmonies and the dissonances.
To notice the melodies playing quietly in the background of your own life. What's yearning for resolution, what's just adding texture.
It really does become a personal exploration, doesn't it? Something that continues long after this conversation ends, unfolding in your own experience. Life as that ongoing composition.
A fascinating way to think about it. Hopefully, this gives everyone listening a new perspective, maybe some threads to follow in their own ongoing discoveries.
Indeed. A journey into the rich landscape of our own awareness.